Good morning and welcome to Rhema Central Coast. That was All the Wrong Things by Brannon Murphy. My name is Lindy Jones and I'm your Sunday morning host. It is a pleasure to be spending time with you again this week. A pinch and a punch for the first day of the month or something like that. I guess I can welcome you to both Sunday and to October. Let me ask you how your week has been. This week has been a little bit more jam-packed than usual for me. It's school holidays. Aren't we supposed to relax and slow down a little during the school holidays? It definitely has not been the case for me this week. Busy is a good thing though, much better than sitting around and twiddling my thumbs, I guess. The weather today is looking to be yet another warm one. We're looking at around 34 to 35 degrees for most of the coast today. And we're set to continue with warm water, hot even, consistently for the next few days. Now, over the next few weeks, we're going to be exploring a few different angles of the function of the church. The how-to, if you like, where it comes to being activated as a full force, aware of the various roles we all play, and the reminder to support those who are on our team, those who are a part of the God fam. I think it can be beneficial to sort of check in and work out where we are headed. A few weeks ago, we explored the mission of the church, though we settled in on two particular perspectives and the calling God has on each of us to, one, evangelise and share the gospel and ultimately good news of who Jesus Christ is and was, and further, ensure those in our lives can see the Holy Spirit living through us in our everyday. And two, we spoke of the importance of being seen as a movement of mercy and justice, being vocal and active in the world, particularly when we're speaking up for those who have no hope or means to speak for themselves. The role of advocacy is highlighted when we consider this calling. The church has some very real purpose in today's world, yet we are constantly reminded through social and mainstream media that we aren't openly accepted or embraced. Comment after comment you can read on any social media post related to the church that there is no need for religion, and many state that the God fair in the sky is fictitious. And yet, we're still thriving as a body, thousands of years later. Since the early church, we're still here, still active and still pursuing the role of the church and checking in on what we're actually supposed to be about. It is our faith and deep-rooted belief that there is a God whose ways will never be our ways because they outsource and outrun anything we could ever comprehend. And it is the knowledge that God loved the world so much that he gave his one and only Son, so that whoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. That we, as a group, as a community, as the church, want to share with the world. To know who we are assists us to be who we are as a unified body of Christ. Just as a human body is best equipped with 2 arms, 2 legs, 5 fingers on each hand, 5 toes on each foot, a heart, 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, a bladder, the list goes on. Things are easier when it all works well and together. So too does the church when we understand the purpose of each role or contributor to the whole cause. Now, this is a big topic of conversation. There are so many elements to explore, so I have a decision to make as I speak. Do I go big and broad, or do I zoom in on a few aspects and go from there? It is a lot to comprehend, but I initially thought of October as being a great time of the year to break down several relevant aspects of the modern church and their role in meeting the mission of the church, irrespective of time and history. So for now, I'm thinking we're best to stick with that. Perhaps at a later time, there'll be a need to dig even deeper. Today then, we're going to talk cheerleading, being your church's cheerleader. Cheerleading and church? Yeah, it doesn't sound like the standard churchy conversation, but I've previously done a whole sermon on the church and the sporting field. This might be a little stretch of that. And what a great time to be thinking about the church in the context of sport. It's grandfinal fever in many sporting settings this week. Now, as a Penrith girl from way back, I've got to say, go the Panthers. I honestly never have any idea what is happening in the AFL or NRL, but when I know Penrith is doing okay and headed down the track for potential victory, suddenly I'm interested. I'm one of those supporters that turns up when it's a convenient time for me. Selfish and not overly committed? Yeah, you could say that. But that's probably a great starting point for today's show. We could be applying that to our level of commitment to the church and asking, am I really a team player? Am I actively pursuing the sport of Christianity? Am I sitting on the sideline, gossiping with friends and not aware of what is happening on the field? Where am I in this game of Christian life? What position do I take on the field? And regardless of whether I'm actively playing on the field or on the sideline, am I being a cheerleader of the church? We're just getting started, so stick with me as we talk the church as a sport, designed to keep us on active, alert, even on guard and feisty in heart to bring others onto our team. We're going to be back shortly. Again, I'm Lindy Jones and you are listening to Rhema CC, the station that prays. This now is Better For It by Riley Clemens. Welcome back, I'm Lindy Jones and it's a delight to again be spending this Sunday morning with you as we begin another great day. It's a weekend of grand final fever to many out there, perhaps you're feeling it too. But it's a great landscape to start our topic of conversation for today. I admitted earlier that I'm not what you'd call an overly committed supporter of footy, and I'm more talking the NRL rather than the AFL. I was raised in a big footy family, fanatic family, and told that following Parramatta was a must, but me, being me, I broke the mould and took my own very brave steps to admit that my allegiance was leaning more towards supporting the Penrith Panthers. Though I admit again, that level of support tends to fluctuate based on how well they're doing each week. So this week I'm a proud supporter of the Penrith Panthers. Whether I actually even watch the game, who knows? But I use this example to address a bigger question. Where is our allegiance and level of commitment when we think of the Christian church as a team on the sporting field? How deeply committed are we to playing regardless of how tricky the game gets or the other players cheat us? Are we covering ourselves in the team spirit, wearing the team colours both on and off the field? Do people know the team we are in by the way we do life? Big questions right there. Let's break it down even further. To apply the church in a sporting field context, we could possibly start here. If we think of our coach as the ministry leaders in our churches, do we really listen to what they speak each week? Are we challenged enough to make real changes with how we play on the field? Do we go to our team coaches, that's our pastors, Christian mentors, or other ministry leaders and ask for their insight, for their wisdom in doing life? Or do we sit on the sideline and watch as the coaches offer advice or technical correction on a spiritual level and think, yeah, thanks for that advice, but and then we apply nothing? Do we ever go to the same coaches and say thank you for believing in us and who we are yet to become, for offering us the hope that they know because they share the same faith as we do and strive to make it a part of their life in every realm and every day of their lives? Do we say thank you for praying for us, for walking the tough stuff, for striving to love us without judgment? Being the team coach carries plenty of responsibility, but is so rewarding when the team plays well and goals are achieved. Stepping in and just acknowledging the role that ministry leaders, or in this case, if we continue with the sporting theme, our ministry coaches, is a great start to being an active and well-received cheerleader. In other parts of the world, there are times specifically highlighted throughout the year to celebrate and thank those in ministry roles. An example is Pastor Appreciation Month. I'd never heard of that until I joined a pastor's wives group on social media. But the concept is thoughtful and a simple way to acknowledge those in our lives who coach us on a spiritual level each week. I asked my husband for this week by asking pastors that he knew how we, the church, can best support ministry leaders as a church. Some of the comments received included when others directly ask our church priorities and how they can get involved. Turning up, merely just turning up to organised events and helping out on a practical level. Offering words of an unexpected compliment. Cheerleading your church and the coaches overseeing your team, that is, the ministry leaders, can only be a good thing. And what about our interactions with each other? Are we encouraging, stirring each other on in acknowledgement and support? Do we go ahead and tell people that they mean something to us, that they're valued and that they're wanted? And what about our interactions with each other? Are we encouraging, stirring each other on in acknowledgement and support? Do we go ahead and speak when there is much to be valued in our brothers and sisters in Christ? Do we tell them they mean a lot to us, and do we specifically tell them why? I've never understood people refraining from saying why they love and value each other. It offers context and depth and solidifies the affirmation one person is sharing with another. Just tell them. It's as simple as that. You'll never regret telling someone that firstly, you see beautiful characteristics of who they are. And secondly, you'll be thankful you told them what those traits are, because they will take that and know that someone values that aspect of who they are. We lost another great soul from our church a few days ago. It honestly felt like she was here and then she wasn't. I absolutely love this lady, but I'm so thankful that God had given us a few hurdles along the way in terms of situations involving her health. I think it may have acted as a bit of a prompt to tell her exactly how special she was. Joy, that was her name, and that is who she was. Now, Joy had one of her legs amputated recently and had multiple hospital stays. Plenty of touch and go scenarios, but with every hurdle she pushed back, and she pushed back in faith and a strength that truly could only have come from God himself. One day in the car park at church, I was walking out to the bins as she zoomed towards the front gate on her motorised scooter. Now, this lady drove this thing literally everywhere, and I'm talking everywhere, up and down the coast. She stopped and started talking to me that day. She affirmed both my husband and I and what she believed was our role in the church, being incredibly uplifting in our conversation. I hugged her, and the words that left my mouth even left me surprised. I whispered in her ear, "You are a very special lady, Joy. I hope you know that. Very, very special." They were the words I think she needed, and the words that I'll forever be thankful I spoke. I'm going to miss her, and I'll always be grateful for her cheerleader heart and willingness to loudly cheer. Joy was a joy. She reminded me of the attributes we're all encouraged to strive for as team players on this field of life. The fruit of the Spirit should be the cry of our heart and deepest prayer in the way we interact with one another. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These are who we should hope to be. When we exercise these as teammates, we're more solid and secure in the way we play the game on the field. We're talking sports this weekend, but the sport of the church. Stick with me a little further as we dig even deeper into how we can be the best team on the field and greatest cheerleaders when we're off. Before we head off for a break, I want to leave you with these words. Philippians 1:3-6. Every time I think of you, I give thanks to my God. In all my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. Encourage the teammates in your Christian circle today. Tell them you're thankful for them and tell them why. This is Lindy Jones here on Rhema CC, and this is Heart Stops Beating by Joshua Micah. Morning Central Coast, you're listening to Rhema CC. I'm Lindy Jones, your Sunday morning host, and it's the first day of the month. So a pinch and the punch and all that stuff, all while preparing for the NRL grand final tonight, or celebrating or even commiserating the AFL results from this weekend. It got me thinking, footy fever can actually prompt us to reflect on our lives from a sports perspective. How we play on the field, what type of cheerleader we're being, whether we acknowledge the team players we do life with, and whether we acknowledge them well. Whether we're committed to the team, the game, and the injuries that might come along because we're playing the game of life, playing on the team of Christ. Occasionally, it can feel that even when we're committed to the team, we're still sitting on the sidelines watching as if we haven't been included or remembered as part of the team. The song that we just listened to, God and Me by Jet Trouble, explored that very concept a few moments ago. There's plenty of analogies we can integrate when we think of sport, particularly team sports, and the way we are called to participate and act as a team as Christians. We briefly discussed the characteristics we're encouraged to demonstrate as teammates, the spiritual traits that demonstrate whether we're on the team of hope. These might include love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Think of your favourite team players. Do they offer these personal attributes as a sportsman or fellow believer? What do you need to do to make changes to become more like the team player that offers these characteristics to your team? Because honestly, those watching from the sidelines will observe who we are and how we've been playing the game. When we play in fairness and we play by demonstrating some of these attributes, there's a good chance that there are others who are watching but haven't yet joined the team and may start to ask questions about why our team, the team that follow and love God, are so different. The hope then is that they'll want to be part of our team too. Listeners, we're being watched by the onlookers in our lives. When we're being watched, and observers may question why we believe in God, why we follow Jesus, why we value his teachings. They may not understand, but you bet they are watching how we behave on the field, how we treat each other. They're watching how we treat our coach or coaches. And they're watching when we're at half time and need to regroup and work out the next plan of attack or even defence, for that matter. Let's stand together as one, the church. The team that we're called to be is a team that must reflect God's values. We need to be a team who exercise patience on the field. We need to be demonstrating kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. A great example of this might come in the form of talking about gossiping or gossipers. I've always heard the saying that if someone is willing to tell you something about someone else behind their back, you can be fairly certain they won't hesitate to talk about you to others too. But what happens when we stand up to gossip? What happens when we defend each other? What happens when we call out the unfair or the unjust statements about another and say, that's not the version of that person I've ever come across. They must have just been having a tough day. I'll tell you what happens. A barrier is placed between the person gladly sharing all their thoughts, judgments, or pure gossip and those on your team. When you defend each other in public, there is no room for obstacles to rise on the field when the bigger battles surface, because you know you can and will be trusted by your fellow teammates. That's those who are within your local church or even the church as a whole. I made a reference to the many negative comments made on social media about the church. Those of us who are Christians and those who are leaders of religion. I can't tell you how many times I've actually responded to those with tact, yes, but I've responded in defense. No, I can't change every person's mind about the Christian faith or even about the reality of God. But I can start by speaking out the truth from my personal experience and testimony, and through every other means available. Some examples might be by asking bigger questions than what they are stating, by providing countercultural scientific results, the information not readily shared. I never want to provide proof in an obnoxious or arrogant manner. I hope I'm never perceived that way. No, instead I hope to offer what information I can that best presents and protects those on my team. I need to be the type of teammate that defends when it is needed. At times, acting in defence is a tactic, might be by explaining the protocols or even legalities of the church and the way we function. My job as God's kid right now is to be the best teammate I can be to fellow Christians. If I know that what they are speaking is untrue, I'm best to just gently let them know. And if I get it wrong and speak what isn't truth, I really value other Christians gently correcting me. Being a team means defending those who need to be defended. It means being there to back each other up. It means observing when another player is being cornered and the weight of the world is just too hard for them to get the ball around. In response, it means sending multiple players to be there to back them up in defence, praying for them, taking out any further obstacles, protecting them, their teammate, as best they can. But what about when we're considering an offensive position? You might have been watching various sporting teams like the Matildas in August, or observed the Collingwood Magpies or even Brisbane Lions last night as they started their games. Generally, it's considered the better option to be taking an offensive stance when beginning a new game. The more goals kicked and the more play down their end of the field, the easier the play is likely to be for the remainder. To do this, they have to study their competition. They have to consider various paths to achieve. If we, the church, are going to approach the game of life that we play while here on earth, we need to know our mission, our purpose, the enemy's battle plan, and how we can start kicking goals before we really need to jump into defence. You know, I'm kind of excited. I'm loving what is happening amongst Christian churches on the coast. It seems like the division that once was is closing in. Instead of competing and ridiculing others because they serve or worship differently to us, something new is emerging. There's more patience, respect, and an understanding that we are all part of one body and God loves every single part. I can't help but feel that God is enjoying what we're consciously deciding to do as his kids. This one is for those of you who are out there and parents. You'll understand and relate to this. Have you ever stood back and just watched your kids prove that they are capable and they are equipped with all the right tools to show others a sense of hope and kindness? One of the proudest moments as a mum came when we were travelling and saw an elderly lady who was struggling with her suitcases. Not overly struggling, but enough for our eldest daughter to notice. She would have probably been around 15 or 16 at the time. Without question, she told the lady she would carry the bags for her and moved throughout the airport until the lady was where she needed to be. Neither my husband or I needed to prompt that move at all. Our daughter just saw an opportunity to demonstrate God's love, and she grabbed it. If we, as God's church, can operate in the same way and take a position of offense on the playing field of life, we may be able to grab as many moments as possible to share God's love with those who really need to see God in a world that can be selfish and dark at times. When we demonstrate the fruit of the Spirit to strangers and to each other, the mission of the church is given greater voice and room for team growth and numbers to be greatly enhanced. See, the thing about the Christian team, or the church team if you like, is that unlike the sport teams that we associate ourselves with, there is never going to be too many players. God doesn't have papers for us to sign to prove our age or require us to participate at different levels of capability to keep it fair. No, we're all equal, but we understand that some of us have been playing for longer than others. Some are younger players, some are older, some have more experience with playing in the offense positions, ready to propel the mission of the church and move it into parts of the globe still yet to hear of the gospel. Other players are needed because they possess great defensive skills and gifting. They can call out bad behaviour from other teams or those opposed to the Christian church. They will defend their teammates because it is right and just. God will take any player that puts their hand up to be on his team. He just wants us as we are so that he can develop us into the players we need to become. There are no tryouts. It's a case of sign up and you're in. Now that's the type of team I love being a part of. When we come back at around 9:15ish, we're going to talk about another aspect of a sports team that often gets overlooked, those players on the bench. I've got more to say about their importance then when we come back. But before that, we're going to hear Keeper of My Heart by Avalon. At 8:30 this morning, New Beginnings will kick off with Greg Laurie, so listen out for that too. In the meantime, I'm Lindy Jones and you're listening to Rhema CC. I'll see you back here shortly. Well, that was Say I Won't by Mercy Me. A big good morning to each of you this lovely Sunday morning. Yes, it's meant to be a hot one again today. Just a little reminder that it's a great idea to ensure you have enough water to drink, that you stay in the shade or air conditioning if you can, and make sure kids and pets are taken care of too. They tend to forget that the heat makes them either loopy or completely flat of energy. A gentle reminder to drink plenty or load up on ice blocks. That could be a big help. As for us coasties, taking advantage of the beaches on our doorstep is a great opportunity. We don't have to travel too far to have a splash in the ocean or cool off with the ocean breeze. I know days like today can be a little bit more chaotic on our beaches. We were thankfully blessed beyond measure a few years ago when we lived straight across the road from the beach. So go easy with any tourists and remember we're blessed enough to enjoy it, and that's any day of the week really. I think today we can share the view with our tourists, our friends, people who aren't normally up here. What do you say about that? As a side note, remember to swim between the flags if you are taking a dip today. Make the job easier for our lifesavers and just swim where they're ready to help if any emergencies do happen to take place. The least we can do is try and keep their job easy. I think this applies to our approach of bushfires too. Now is a great time to really prepare for what is expected to be a fairly intense bushfire season. The RFS have highlighted quite a few ways to prepare your home and property should disaster take hold, and it's probably not a bad idea to view their website for your own consideration. But these include cleaning your gutters of leaves and twigs, install metal gutter guards, repair damaged or missing tiles on the roof, install metal mesh screens on windows and doors, fit seals around doors and windows to eliminate gaps, enclose areas under your house, attach a sprinkler system to gutters, keep lawns short and gardens well maintained, cut back trees and shrubs overhanging buildings, clean up fallen leaves, twigs and debris around the property, have hoses long enough to reach around your house. Now, there are others, but I thought that's a fairly good start if you're listening today and thinking ahead on what you could possibly do to help prevent a problem down the track. Again, the RFS website is a great resource to help you prepare so that together we can take the pressure off the RFS as much as we can. As I mentioned last week, our family witnessed a couple of months ago just how quickly a fire can take hold and how terrifying it can be. So it's very real in my mind. But now back to our topic of exploration today. I've been talking this morning about the whole footy finals fever and considering the way team sports are both played and observed. We've considered the analogy of team sports when we think of how the church is supposed to do life. As the church, we discussed the way we acknowledge our coaches, that's the ministry leaders and pastors, and whether we really take on what they challenge us to live. We've discussed the type of teammates we should be striving to be and play with. We observed certain character traits, the fruit of the Spirit specifically, that show us whether we are really demonstrating great team character. And then in our last segment, we discussed various tactical plays, particularly in reference to either offensive or defensive play. To act as a team in a state of offense requires knowledge of the mission of the church, who we are and why we exist. It requires a need to push through hurdles by firstly knowing ourselves and then studying our opponents. To study their tactics, the way they may attempt to throttle us as a church, as one body, the way they might try and disperse us from one another. We've got to study the opponents and be prepared to get in before they can strike. Then we consider the need to act in defence as a team, to be there for each other, to know with certainty that we are and will be each other's backup and support. This is particularly the case when the church, or even we as individuals, are taking a beating from the opposing team. We need to pull together and draw on the skills and gifts we have as a collective team and defend. The church isn't too different from the sporting team, and I hope that as you might watch the grand final tonight, you might just consider things from a spiritual perspective too. Where are you on that field? Are you even on the field? Maybe you're a little like me, and when it comes to supporting a sporting team and merely turn up when it's the end of a season or just at a convenient time for you. Maybe your level of commitment to Christ or to the church just isn't there right now. Is there something that needs to change to get you back in the game? Or are you just not interested in playing right now? Only you can honestly answer those questions, but it certainly wouldn't be a bad thing to take some time today to really think about where you fit in the scheme of things if you were to compare your spiritual life with a life on the sporting field or within a sporting context. Now, I want to examine the team players who are sitting on the bench at the moment. Wow, it can be frustrating when we're forced to simply sit and watch others as others play, leaving us to feel that there's not much point in even being around the field. But let's look at some of the reasons you might be sitting on the bench for a bit. Perhaps you're in need of a rest and the coach can sense it's time to genuinely take a breather. Maybe you've been running hard for far too long and they had to make a call for your own health. Maybe you are causing more damage than you're offering as good because fatigue can often mean we trip people up or forget to play with care. Sitting on the bench in these circumstances is genuinely for the care of you and for others. It doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. It simply means it's time to call time out to protect yourself and those on your team. It also means the other team, the team that will jump at any opportunity to bring your team down. The church, if we're speaking specifically. Understanding that the schemes of the devil are like that of a roaring lion, ready to pounce at any time. The church need to be prepared. Well rested and prepared, but they can't forget to keep playing when they're equipped with the armour of God, once again, when they're rested and prepared, ready to fight for their team and for the mission of the church. That fight looks different to the fight that the rest of the world understand. The way the church fights is through prayer and petition, with kindness, goodness, joy, peace, patience, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Definitely not the tactics of the world. We stand out for what appears to be a pushover. But something incredible happens when we continue to love thoroughly in the way God calls us. There's room for others to see that we play the game differently and it works. Back to the player on the bench though. Maybe this player has an injury. Maybe they need time to heal, a time to talk it over with coaches or even go higher up than that. Maybe this is a time to directly deal with the designer of the sport itself. If we're applying it back to Christianity, that would be the designer of the universe. Maybe the person on the bench of life feels that their life is paused for a time, a season, or just a few games because they are in pain and cannot move. Or maybe they're struggling to find progress by being on the field. The one that designed the game of life that is going to act as the greatest healer because he knows the game. He knows the individual players and he knows how to get them back on the field. He just needs to be invited into their life to really set out and heal. Now think of the player who needs a massage for muscle tension or relief. The problems experienced by the player physically have been identified and a plan is put in place to get them back on the field and off the bench as quickly as possible. The muscles can be healed with the right care, but it's going to take some medical intervention. And let's just say these players are told to ensure they use massage and stretches for relief. Have you ever used those electronic massages before? I have one because for a long time I lived with a great deal of physical pain, probably just due to being a total stress head and never really learning how to relax. I picked it up again this week and I used it on my back. My goodness, the itchiness that came with using that thing was insane. Everything went from enjoyable to just itchy. So I did what every self-diagnosing professional does, and don't follow my lead on this one, and Googled why we get itchy when we are having a massage. This is what I found. According to the fitbodyfactory.com, itching after a massage is the result of the venous system, made up of small and big veins within the muscles that convey blood back to the heart. It's stimulated by vibration therapy. They go on to say that current research suggests that increased blood flow during and after a pulse massage gun usage wakes up nerves around muscles that have been stretched beyond their usual range. This is especially true if you aren't used to exercising or massaging a specific body part. Now, sometimes when we're seated on the bench and sent in for a massage, we think we're getting treatment for one thing, and that turns out that it's actually about activating nerves that have been previously overlooked or not noticed for some time. Sometimes, as a team player that God has sat on the bench, we assume he has forgotten us or he can no longer use us. But the truth is, he is using that time on the bench to activate us in new skills, new passions, or reactivate skills and passions that we have allowed to die off through harsh words spoken by others or players from another team that want to shatter our true capability. I don't know how many people I've heard say this, but I used to work in the employment service and I'd have a lot of people in retirement ages, and they'd often say, "What can I do? I'm too old." My response was always very simple. It was, and it sounds a bit brutal, "Well, you're not dead yet. There's still breath in your lungs. You've still got a heart that's beating. There's still purpose for you." So if you've been sent to the bench and you're headed back for a massage, and if that massage is doing more work than you'd anticipated, making you itchy and uncomfortable, or if more specifically your spiritual life is being shaken up a little while you're not participating or active in the church or ministry, just know that there's a huge chance you're in preparation for getting back on the field, in possibly a new direction, role, or by being asked to draw on different skills or giftings than you ever have. Being put on the bench, the team bench, rather than playing on the ministry field isn't a bad thing. No, not at all. In fact, from the sidelines, you can assess the opposing teams and their tactics from a whole new angle. Your time out might be one of the most advantageous strategies for the team as a whole. What I am saying is that as a part of the church, if you feel like you just can't be part of ministry life at this very time, this may be a time for real healing or a real need to observe where things aren't being played well by the church. And with prayer and spiritual guidance, you might discover that you have more to offer as a player, as an active member of the living church than you have in a long time. Don't give up. God is not done with you yet. This is Fresh Winds by United. I'm Lindy Jones right here on Rhema CC. I'll see you back here shortly. Enjoy. Welcome back. I'm Lindy Jones and we're talking all things sporting field this morning here on Rhema CC. It seemed appropriate with 2 grand finals of well-followed sports being played this weekend to take a look at the elements of an on-field and off-field play. The only difference? Well, we haven't been covering techniques of skill of those particular sports or even acknowledging the teams that are playing or have played in both AFL and NRL this year. I do have to admit, though, that as a Penrith girl from way back, I'd be denying my roots if I didn't declare myself a Panthers supporter. I gladly state that claim whenever they make it to a grand final. The rest of the footy season, I honestly have no idea what they're doing or how they're doing it or where they are on the leaderboard at all. I'm not really what you'd call a committed supporter. But we started with this analogy for the sporting world and explored it from a church perspective. Some of us tend to boast our ties and bonds with the faith when it's convenient, just like I do with the Panthers this year. There's no judgment in that statement. It's merely an observation, but allows us to really think about where we stand in our faith. Some of us are actively playing on the field, getting dirty and tired, but consumed with joy by the game of the Christian life. We're tested on our character by the way we demonstrate our team skills. Do we display the fruit of the Spirit in how we play the game? That's an open-ended question. Some of us are called to be the coaches, to know our team well, encourage further development in particular areas of our spiritual life, to be challenged when there are some that might need to sit out for a game or process what is happening within their team, or perhaps work on a hurting soul through rest or even massage. But even then, we need to be prepared for a massage to stir up other concerns that we didn't know we had, all for the end goal of getting back on the field with a new strength and an awareness of different skills and abilities we possess. We can apply so much of team sport to how we understand our spiritual life. Being our church cheerleader, irrespective of where we are on the sporting field, is always a welcome stance to take. Cheer each other on. Be the best teammate you can and listen to your coach, particularly when they are challenging us on Scripture and living like Jesus. We don't have to flinch when we are challenged by injuries that have occurred on the field. We simply must be okay with understanding that God is the ultimate healer, and while He allows us to experience the uncomfortable at times, He does it because He knows the tactics and plays that He will call us to through those experiences. He designed us, and sometimes we don't know we are more capable than we realise. Injury and time on the bench can actually give us the push we need to really embrace the sporting, our field of Christianity. So pray about it this week. Ask how you can cheer on your church more and how you can be an even better team player. I want to say thank you for joining me again today. I always feel a little reluctant to say goodbye on a Sunday morning. I'm never really ready to say I'm finished for the day, but yes, I am. And church on the radio is going to be kicking off at 10 a.m. So feel free to continue listening if you're unable to get out today. Stay cool. Have a fantastic week, and I just pray that you get a glimpse of Jesus each day in the people, the situations or creation you've surrounded yourself with as your week goes about. I'll be back next Sunday morning, and I look forward to being with you again then. Again, I'm Lindy Jones, leaving you now with Brandon Murphy's Coming Home. Have a great Sunday and keep cheering on the church. I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.